live at the Jamaica Information Service, our discussion program coming to you live on Facebook and YouTube. I'm your host, Vaughn Davis. Thank you to everyone joining us online, wherever you are around the world. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for your eyes. And like how we have your attention, do us a favor, no man. Share this video with a friend or two or 10,000 so we can have a very lively discussion. And as you watch, remember to send in your questions and your comments so we can put them to our guests. All right? Now, whenever I hear people say nothing now going to Jamaica, I just want to grab them and shake them and just try to force some energy into them so them can dash with that mindset. Whole heap of things are going on Jamaica. You just need to know where to look. So many of us have innate skills and talents that we are wasting, that if we knew how to fully utilize them, could earn us millions, especially in the cultural and creative economy. Take even this camera then, who call and convince people to part with their hard-earned money. Now, I don't know why you do that, when you could be working in voice acting with their money, or you could be doing voice acting, or you could be doing jingles. We have so many potential dancers, actors, writers, cameramen, producers, you name it. And there are a lot of programs out there geared at helping you to develop your talents and monetize them. But again, if you have to know where to look. Luckily for you, you don't have to look anywhere today, because today we're here to discuss a program that will be providing grant funding. You hear me just say? Grant funding, meaning they are giving the money away to different types of creatives to help develop Jamaica's and the Caribbean's cultural and creative economy. It's called the Creative Caribbean Project, being implemented by UNESCO, the CARICOM Secretariat, and the University of the West Indies. And here to share details about the program today are Ms. Olayinka Jacobs-Barnick. She's the Creative Caribbean Project Coordinator at UNESCO. And we have Dr. Hilary Brown, Program Manager for Culture and Community Development at the CARICOM Secretariat. Welcome to both of you ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, so I'm going to start with you, Olayinka. I think we're friends, right? So I'm going to just call you Olayinka because it's just easier that way. We're buddies, right? So can you just give me an idea of the Creative Caribbean Project? Give me some of the backstory and how we arrived at where we are in terms of being able to implement such a program to benefit Jamaican and Caribbean creatives.
Thank you very much, Vaughn. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak first, but I would like to hand the floor over to my colleague, Hilary. She has a deep history of how this project started. So if you don't mind, I would like to allow her to go first. Thank you.
That's perfectly fine. So over to you, Dr. Brown. I feel like whenever I say doctor, I feel like I can't just call you Hilary. I have to be like Dr. Brown. All right, so over to you, Doctor.
Feel free to call me Hilary. I don't stand on those kinds of ceremonies.
All right.
So it's a pleasure, Vaughn, to be here and to have this conversation about this project. And to share some of the background, because, you know, a lot of the times, I mean, I've worked at CARICOM for a number of years, and I've heard it said so many times, what does CARICOM do? Mm-hmm. Where is CARICOM? What's the value? And so in speaking about this project, I think it's really important to take account of a lot of the work that has been done over, I would say, a decade and a half. So we have had our heads of government in 2015. They endorsed, recognized the creative sector as one of great value to this region, and ensured that the Cultural and Creative Innovation Fund was started by the Caribbean Development Bank in 2018. We have had our trade ministers who identified the creative and cultural sector as one of the 7 priority sectors. And that led to us developing the Cultural and Entertainment Services Strategy in 2017 for the sector. But we also have a regional development strategy for the cultural and creative industries, which was done in 2012 and revised in 2019. And I think what has challenged us all along is that although we had the political support of our heads of government, our ministers of culture, our ministers of trade, and we had all of these excellent strategies articulated and agreed on among all the member states, we were always challenged to find the resources to implement them and to provide the kind of support that we needed to give to our creatives. And so bringing us closer to the actual project, I want to mention that our ministers of culture in 2017 in Brussels really lobbied the European Union and the ACP, the African Caribbean Pacific group, to say we need to have an allocation of resources by region, not this general pool out there that our artists never hear about, don't know how to access. Could you allocate resources by region? So it was the advocacy of our culture ministers, and we made sure that the Caribbean culture ministers had a loud voice in that meeting. And so that helped us now to have this carve out of 3 million euros from the 11th EDF, which was set aside exclusively for the Caribbean. And this was the first this had ever happened. So I wanted to give that background so that, our artists and our people can understand that, our ministers and our heads of governments and sometimes our technocrats, they really are working on behalf of the region and to try to ensure that resources are made available to develop this vital sector, which is so vital for the region.
Right.
So I'll stop there. Thank you.
It's good to explore. I mean, this backstory is always great, and it's very important to know that sometimes, because one of the biggest complaints you tend to hear is that why we can't get more money for the cultural creatives, why we can't get more money being pumped into this sector. So it's important to let people understand that some of the fights and the battles you have to fight to get the money so that we can start doing more. All right, people say have to understand, as Dr. Brown is explaining, hey, sometimes it's not that them don't want to spend the money. Sometimes you have to go out there with the sword and the pickaxe and everything, and pickaxe stick and swing it so you can convince some of the persons with the money bags to start pumping some of the money in and developing our local creative scene. All right. I don't know who, but I'm gonna just fling it out there now. Let's get straight to the Creative Caribbean project. What are some of its objectives specifically, and how is it helping to channel the money to our local creatives, our regional creatives rather?
Go ahead, Hilary.
No, well, since I just spoke, you go ahead, Olenka, and then I will add on to anything that I think needs to be added.
Okay, sure. Well, the main objectives first of all, the overall objective of the Creative Caribbean project is to foster economic, human, and social development of our region by stimulating inclusive, diversified, and sustainable growth of our cultural economy. And the project hopes to do this through the creation of jobs for women, men, and youth, looking at a decent work framework. And women, quite importantly here, women and youth actually, women, men, and youth are all important. But the majority of our creative and cultural businesses or activities are actually women-led in the region. And youth are very much attracted to the sector, and it actually globally employs the highest number of young people, and it is also true in our region. So women, men, and youth, with a focus on ensuring that everyone has access. Another overall objective is the creation, production, and distribution of cultural and creative goods and services. Improved market access, which is very important because it doesn't make sense to create things if you can't sell them or if you can't share them in order to gain an income and to be self-sufficient, and support of regional and national policies and measures. So this is important. It's a grant that looks at the ecosystem. So we are wanting to support the development of the ecosystem. And the ecosystem has many different actors. You have the content originators, who are the artists. You have the organizations like the national associations. For example, in Jamaica, you have JAFTA, the Jamaica Film and Television Association, among others. But you also have quasi-governmental organizations who are working hand in hand with the organizations and the content creators to create policies, to create measures that facilitate the growth of a particular industry or of the creative economy altogether. So This is a grant for the ecosystem, not just one part of the ecosystem, but everyone who's involved in it and all organizations, activities involved in it. We have some specific objectives as well, which is to strengthen and to rationalize, as I mentioned earlier, the creative and cultural industry ecosystem development framework. This is something that Hilary had mentioned as well, including entrepreneurial capacity and strategic business planning. So what does that mean? That basically means that we're looking to strengthen all of the different elements that go into building capacity for entrepreneurs and business planning. But it's not only for entrepreneurs and people in business. You could be an individual artist, you're still eligible for this grant.
All right, that's fantastic.
And also looking at rationalizing and strengthening the ecosystem for the cultural and creative sectors in the region. We also have increased creation and production of quality global competitive goods. Already spoke about getting the goods to the market and services. As well as access to local, regional, and international markets, and the creation of new jobs. So it's really important to understand that when you are part of our ecosystem, job creation is one of those things that happens systematically when the business sector is thriving and growing. So as your business grows, you can create more jobs. We want to see more jobs created in our sector. Within the decent work framework, so that means you get decent pay, you work decent hours for our creatives in the region. And finally, expanded skills which enable participants to generate the cash flow that they need to fuel their growth, as well as increased access to financing through different innovative mechanisms that the project is going to implement. And also, these mechanisms will allow co-financing and reduce the Caribbean's cultural operators' dependency on international financing. So yes, we are very grateful to the European Union and the African and Caribbean and Pacific organization for this grant, but we are hoping that the money and the activities and the jobs that will be created by this injection of funds will actually lessen our region's dependency on international funding. So there are lots of things that we want to do, but we're confident that we can make it happen.
All right, sounds good. And it's fun. It's important that, to me, one of the things that you mentioned is that you didn't, it doesn't seem like it's locked in on any particular group of artists or creatives or so on. So it's like a broad spectrum. So you have your musicians, you have your, filmmakers, I mean, you name it, sculptors, painters, you name all different kind of people, and that's fascinating as well. Was that a specific objective? Because it would seem like, in many cases, many persons like to put their best foot forward, and in the case of the Caribbean, it's music. Music is what's carrying the sway. So you might find that persons will think, okay, musicians are those particular group of creatives will get preference in this particular kind of setup. I want you to just demystify that and let person know that this is something that's accessible to all different types of creative, not just, musicians and the popular set.
Absolutely, but that's a really good example. I mean, let's take music as an ecosystem. Now, the musician cannot exist on their own. They can create music, but if they want to get their music to the market, they need a whole ecosystem of people and different types of skill sets to enable them to get there. And once they get to the market, let's say that they're going to do a concert in another country, they're going to need a stage manager, a set designer, a costume designer, a hairdresser, a makeup artist. All those people are part of the ecosystem. And I like to use the example, for example, and eligible for this grant. I like to use the example of a physiotherapist. We don't think about doctors being involved in the creative ecosystem, but if that physiotherapist is specialized in working with dancers, for example, and they're a very important part of the dancers' business, because without the work of the physiotherapist, the dancer can't get back on stage. That dancer is a part of, that physiotherapist, is a part of the dance ecosystem, but we don't think about it that way. And that physiotherapist's business would be contributing to the growth of the ecosystem, and then, depending on the context and the project that they're presenting, eligible for these grants. So we have to think about it in a holistic fashion. It's very important to say that without the artist, all of the other bits of the ecosystem don't exist, but it's also the same the other way around. Without the other bits of the ecosystem, the artist is really just kind of working on their own, and it makes it a lot more difficult to get from where they are to where they want to be, especially when it comes to market access. So when we speak about the different types of creatives, I mean, there's a plethora, and you're saying we like to put our best foot forward. Well, we just believe that we have many feet. Okay. We're putting all of them forward because we're good at so many things. Music has really taken us into another dimension in terms of, what our creative and cultural industries represent and stand for. But there's so much more that we are doing. And we also want to encourage what we call emerging industries. So, that could be within music. If you want to stay within music, we have, emerging, we have rock musicians, we have country musicians. They all exist in the Caribbean. Those are emerging industries. We can also look at things like circus. We don't have a circus in the Caribbean per se, but we do have people who are working on developing circus projects or may have certain circus skills, aerial acrobatics. I wouldn't say it's out there on the other end of the spectrum, because people are actually doing that in our region. They're just not very prominent because it's an emerging industry. So it's that project that you imagined nobody would ever fund. We want you to send that project to us because we're going to look at it, and we're definitely going to give it some consideration. And now I'm going to hand over to Hilary.
Okay. All right.
To add to that.
Oh, that's my job. I'll hand over to Hilary. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. You can't fight. I'm a creative. You have to let me work. Oh yeah. You know what I'm saying? This is how I'm gonna do my thing. All right. No,
agreed.
So okay, over to Hilary. Let me ask you, in terms of the amounts, because that's the thing that's gonna get person's attention. First and foremost, you hear grant. Okay, that's interesting. But how much are we actually talking about here?
So I want to emphasize, following on the points you raised and Olenka raised, that yes, it is a broad spectrum of the creative sector that is being facilitated through this grant. All of the various subsectors, the music, the fashion, the dance, the visual arts, and so on. But also it is, grants are going to be distributed in 15 countries in the region. Mm-hmm. It's 14 countries in CARICOM and the Dominican Republic. Haiti is one of the countries. Suriname is in there. So we have different language groups, and we actually are encouraging creatives to collaborate in country, but also across the region. So if you have a collaborator in another country, it actually could make your project that much more attractive, because we want to encourage that regional collaboration, making use of regional markets outside of Jamaica or outside of whichever country you're in. So that's very important. Of the 3 million euros, one of the things that we are pleased about is that 75% of the resources, that's over 2 million, will be directly granted to creatives. And essentially, in keeping with our objectives, which Olenka gave a good overview of, our grants really mirror sort of the three main pillars that we're trying to achieve. We're giving direct support to the industry. So we have industry grants, a whole series. We are trying to strengthen the enabling environment. That is the environment of policy and planning and incentives. Incentivizing the sector is very important. Tourism and manufacturing and all of the other sectors get all kinds of tax relief and all kinds of incentives, but our creative sector has never benefited to the degree that it should. So we are interested in that enabling environment, and so we have grants in that area. And of course, capacity building and training. And so we have a series of training grants as well. And those grant amounts can range, and I think one of the grants that we are very pleased about.
Let me jump in for a second, Dr. Brain. Seems like your camera suddenly got turned off. I don't quite know how that happened, but yes, there we go. All right, continue.
Yes, a couple of the grants that I think we're excited about. One is for small grants for professional associations. And you may know about this. We have had a lot of challenges nationally and regionally to support artists in creating associations. And, you know, if we had had stronger associations during the COVID-19 pandemic, I think a lot of our artists would have had, you know, a source of support. And that works very well in other countries. So we're hoping through this project, and we do have small grants to support professional associations as well as artist mobility. I can't say how many times at the CARICOM Secretariat I've got requests from artists that really need to go to a trade show, that, you know, need to go to a festival where they can develop further skills and can't find the resources to go. And we do have grants in that area as well. So as I said, our grants can range anywhere from a small grant of 10, 15,000 US right up to $180,000, depending on the scope of your project.
All right. So that's from, you know, do those, well, I guess on the low end, you know, it just depends on what category you apply in.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. So, well, to give some more ideas of the kinds of industry grants. So in addition to those I mentioned, we have grants for developing content and product development, to scale an idea, scaling grants. We have a strong emphasis on festivals. So we have that as a discrete area for support. But within the festival, even though we are interested in strengthening festival management, and we know that this region, you know, we lead the planet in putting on some of the best festivals. But also, we would like to strengthen that component where we make the festival a marketplace, where you bring in talent scouts and managers of international venues and festivals to come to our festivals and to interact with artists and create new opportunities for professional development. So, you know, so we have several grants in industry, and then we have in training and in the enabling environment. This round, though, we launched the industry and the enabling, and we will launch the training grants later this year. And I think what we recognized, though, was that the word takes some time to get out, and we really appreciate this and other opportunities that we have had to talk about the project. But we're going to make sure that we have a second, and if possible, even a third grant call, so that those persons who may have missed this round will have another opportunity. We're not going to finish the money on this first round. Okay. We're going to make sure that we keep some of the grant resources so that in the second call, those who heard about it late or were still developing their project idea have an opportunity.
All right, let me just, for a quick second, a housekeeping matter, Dr. Brown. It seems, I don't know if there's a little bit of a noise in the background, if you maybe have a wireless mic or something is rubbing, but there's a little something in the background that is, you know, jumping in, it's joining our conversation and, you know, in and out. So it's a little bit of a distortion. All right.
Okay, thanks. I think I know what it is. Got it.
Right. Right. So just to be clear, guys, so as Dr. Brown is saying, grants ranging from as low as 10,000 to 15,000 US, which don't seem that low to me. But then again, hey, you know what I mean? That could be, depending on the kind of project that you have, it could be fantastic for you. All the way up to 180,000 $80,000 US dollars, or euros, or is it US? I mean, I'll make sure I get it right before I tell them.
Yes, you're right. It is. Let's call it US.
US, okay, right. So, and it sounds to me like you have an interest, if a person has an idea to create some kind of festival, you know what I mean, or create some kind of event that is more than just like, you know, a festival, more than just a one-off kind of event, you know, a series of events, it would seem, because that's generally what these festivals, you will be willing to fund and support that as well, just to be clear.
That's right. That's exactly right. That a festival that sort of has a capacity building component to it. It might have a training component. It might have, as I said, a kind of a marketplace component where you have persons who come in, very much like what happens in sports with boys and girls champs. We know that we have persons who come from all over the world to come and and scope out the emerging talent in Jamaica. So it's a similar kind of approach for the creative sector. You bring in persons who are looking for talent to showcase in their festivals in Geneva and London and Australia and Nigeria. So you bring them in and they're there to interact and to offer opportunities for development for our artists. So we're very interested in that kind of marketplace component to festivals.
So I think the message here that I would take away is a lot of us have ideas, but we tend to small them up. We don't dream big. Here, Dr. Brown is saying there are persons, there are groups in particular through this Creative Caribbean project that you can dream big. You shouldn't just say, well, because that's one of the tendencies that we have. We have an idea for a thing, but you say, you know what, I'm going to just make a little small, rather than thinking that I could have a really big festival that is full with 10,000-20,000 people, things like that. We just think we're gonna have, may I keep a little thing around at the community center and with a little small box and a small this and a small that. But there are facilities in place, particularly through this project, Creative Caribbean project, that can get you funded if you are willing to put it down on paper, put pen to paper, draft up a nice plan and proposal, and send it out there. So, I mean, what comes to mind automatically to me, things like we have the push cart derby, we have donkey cart race, we have breadfruit festival, different types of festival for all different types of foods and things like that. That many persons start, but they choose to keep small because they think, nobody not gonna give me no money for grow this or expand this or things like that. And like I said, we all have so many ideas in our locked away that we just throw in the back of our mind because we don't think there's money available. We don't think we'd probably get the support we need. We don't think we'd get what we'd want, And this kind of project is here to let you know that forget that kind of mindset, dream big, put it down on paper, get some help, write it down and submit it. You never know. There might be somebody who see it and say, but this sounds interesting. We can do something with this. Right, but then so the question to me is, what would make an application, or I guess first of all, when is the window for this first round? What's the window for this first round of grant? From when to when is the deadline?
I will let Ola Inka go ahead on this.
All right, go ahead, Ola Inka.
All right, thank you so much. 16th of June, which seems very close.
Yeah.
But if we need to, we'll extend the deadline.
Oh, that's the deadline? Okay.
That's the deadline, yeah. It opened on the 21st of April.
Okay.
I just wanted to quickly say, following on from Dr. Brown's comments and your comment, that also what's really important when you submit that, think big proposal is sustainability. So we really want you to put in a lot of thought into the sustainability plan. And if you're not sure what that is or how to develop a sustainability plan, please seek support. You can get support from business support organizations. In Jamaica, we have the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, for example. You can also seek support from independent mentors or business support professionals. But it's really important that you just don't present an application to fill a gap. That's not what it's about.
Which is that comes to exactly what I was going to ask you about. What would make an application look most attractive, in this? But when it comes across your desk, you're gonna open it and say, all right, this is quite intriguing. I think we should definitely support this. What would make an application stand out and make an impact with you guys?
Well, we have a set of independent criteria that all applications have to meet. We also have per application, per grant call rounds, we have groups of independent experts who will be assessing. So none of us up here are going to be assessing the applications. It will be people who are not involved in this project, but are experts in their industry. And as Hilary rightly said, Dr. Brown rightly said, capacity building is critical, sustainability is critical. So when you go through the application, pay close attention to, for example, the areas where you have high points or a lot of points. If you have a lot of points for that particular segment, that's important. Everything is important, but ensure that you can definitely prove in your application how your work and what you are doing is going to contribute to the development of the ecosystem. So there's no way to say this will be better or that will be worse, because first of all, we don't get involved in that decision making, and the criteria is something that was set by our funders, and we also had a contribution because we had to adapt it to the what's happening in our region, because some of the criteria don't fit our region. And also to say that this funding from the EU, as Hilary mentioned, is by region. So we are one of 6 regions that have received funding from the EU and the ACP to do work within our creative sectors. One of 6 regions. So, we were able to adapt some of the criteria to suit our region. So the most important thing to do is to read through the application and to have an understanding. If you have questions, you can send us an email and we will be able to support you.
Okay, I was going to share a little bit too on a little more on some of the criteria that we'll be using to look at some of the projects. So the relevance of your project to the objectives that we have indicated. Your innovation and originality is going to be important as well. The experience of the main applicant and the partners. We also will assign some points for commercial viability and sustainability, as Ola Inka mentioned. The regional collaboration is there, smaller set of points, but if you do have that, can give you an edge. And I think some of the other, so really though, the bulk of the points, the majority go to the relevance of the project and the experience of the applicant. And we really want to encourage creatives to partner because, the European Union had certain criteria that, as Ola Inka said, we had to, work with. And one of them is that you have to be a legal person. You have to have a registered business. And it should have been registered at least 3 years before the date of applying for the project. We don't want this to be, though, a deterrent to our artists in the region. So we say, partner with another artist. If you don't meet some of the criteria, partner to address some of your deficiencies. So we also, so there are other criteria which are all, listed on the website. You have to demonstrate that you have been able to manage grant funding before. So again, if you haven't done that, partner with another creative who has. And demonstrating as well that you are going to put something into the project. You're getting a grant, but you have to show that you are contributing, and that can be sweat equity as well. So as long as you are putting in your time, your resources, that counts. So those are some of the things. So partnership is really important. And we really want to get away from, we know that, creativity can be a really lonely road. And a lot of our artists are used to operating solo. But to be able to build this strong ecosystem, and as we termed it, an ecosystem of play, that was kind of our original idea of how we see creativity in the region. We're a region where play is serious business. It's a lot of fun. It's great coming to the region, but it is also business. And so if we're going to develop a robust creative economy, an ecosystem of play, then we're going to have to work together and strengthen the business framework in which we're operating. So those are all of the ideas and what we expect. So it's serious business. If you don't have all of the criteria, partner with somebody who does.
So what's the website where persons can go and get more of the information?
Okay, Ola Inka.
Okay, so the website is HTTPS. Actually, to make it simple, Creative Caribbean at UNESCO. So if you do UNESCO Caribbean and Creative Caribbean, you can find that. What I will do is I will paste, I don't know if I can, but I can paste the website in the chat. I can read it all out. It's https://unesco.org/Creative Caribbean/home. But if you just Google Creative Caribbean UNESCO, it will come up if you can't remember that entire website address. Can I paste it in the chat? Is that possible?
Go ahead. And our engineer will be able to put it in the chat below. So he said, Google Creative Caribbean UNESCO for more details. Right, so let me just talk to the people online. They're just like, look, people, this is a serious opportunity, all right? Somebody comes along and say, you've had this idea for a long time about a particular festival or an event, or you just say, boy, the community, if I did this, it would be so good or so great. This could take off and be a big deal, You have these ideas. We know you do. So many of us have them bumbling around in the back of our heads thinking, boy, one day. You know what I mean? And here comes an opportunity. As Dr. Brown said, you might not necessarily feel like, you might feel intimidated by the application process. You might feel intimidated by the whole, managing grant funding or being a part of a project that's so formal. But hey, nothing ventured, nothing accomplished. You have to try. And she said, if you don't necessarily meet all the requirements yourself, find somebody to partner with, find somebody you can work with that can help you to meet all the different requirements so you can realize the objective, all right? In case you weren't paying attention, from as low as $10,000 or $15,000 to as much as $180,000 to put on the event or to pump into your creative exercise to take it to the next level. And it's not just music, it's not just TV, it's not just film, it's it's anything that your creative mind can stretch to. And once you can demonstrate sustainability, once you can demonstrate a certain amount of, that this will work, and this is, there are all the bits, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, and everything looks like a proper established idea, because actually you can't just throw money at that thing. It don't work like that. Not in 2022. It don't work like that. You know what I mean? Once you have your thing organized and well put together and presented and looks like it's sustainable and look like it can definitely achieve a major impact, then go ahead. The time is now. This is not about wasting time. COVID shows that things can be, locked down in a second. You don't want to waste an opportunity like this. It's too good. All right? So as Google Creative Caribbean UNESCO, jump on the website, read all the read all the requirements, and see if you can become a part of it. And what was the application period closes on June 16. But I understand that there is a second application or a second window in which you're going to be making grants again. Tell us when that is again. Either whichever one, Ola or Dr. whichever one,
Well, we are hoping in the fourth quarter of this year to launch the training grants. And then next year we'll launch all three grants together. So enabling environment, industry, and training.
All right. And just to be clear again, what are the different, how are the grants differentiated? You have your industry grant and enabling environment grant and training grant. What's the difference between all three?
Well, I can actually give you a brief overview of, for example, the grant calls that are open now, which is the enabling environment grant and the industry grant. So for example, under the enabling and environment grant, we're looking at receiving applications that have to do with national cultural policies and creative industry related legislation, initiatives to provide business support services and improve the business climate for creatives in the region, initiatives to strengthen institutions and associations that support the sector, accelerators and grants to develop key products, services, and events for creative cities, for example, including educational and cultural programming, festivals, co-working spaces, etc. And under the enabling environment, we have 4 grant schemes. We have the National Artist Registry, and that's up to $47,000. We have Visual Literacy and Performing Arts as a grant scheme, also up to $47,000. Cultural Policy, National Implementation of Plans, Legislation, Institutional Strengthening, also up to $47,000. And Creative City Subsector Accelerators, also up to $95,000. Now, if you're not sure which one of these may apply to you, when you go to the webpage, it's all explained there, and you'll be able to identify where you fit. The other open grant call at the moment is the industry grant call. And there we're looking at work placements and attachments to regional or international festivals and events, as Dr. Brown explained. Industry institutions, again, festivals, studios, theaters, galleries, etc. So it's important to say that we do not fund infrastructure developments. If you want to build a theater, we cannot fund that. We can't fund the building, but we can support in other ways. Proposals to organize accelerators to develop new and emerging talent, scaling operations and expanding audiences, strengthening festival management, capacity building, and data collection. Data collection is important. Without data, we can't make decisions. And without data, we're not investable as a region. We need the data to raise our investment profile internationally so that we get more investment in our sector, in our region. Organizing business-to-business fora within festivals, as Dr. Brown has explained. So, and under the industry grant calls, we have several schemes. We have festival development, work placement, and knowledge transfer, up to $179,000. Artist mobility, as Dr. Grant mentioned, up to $17,000. Product development and content production, up to $29,000. Small grants for emerging content originators, up to $19,000. Scaling grants for export-ready creatives, up to $29,000. Creative and cultural industry festival business exchange networks and fora, up to $35,000, and small grants for professional associations, up to $19,000. Again, if you're not sure where you fit, the explanations are on the website. And in the training, under the training grant, which we haven't launched yet, we have 2 schemes: visual literacy and performing arts scholarships, and transversal capacity building workshops.
All right, so there you have it, people. All different 3 categories with a wide breadth of different subcategories that you might be able to fit in. Jump on the website, as I said, Google Creative Caribbean UNESCO. Jump on the website, read through all the details, and you will see what applies to you and what you can take advantage of. This is a great opportunity. It's a grant. In case you didn't understand, grant mean that it's being given to you. Obviously, it comes with, responsibilities and requirements and so on, but at the same time, it's a grant, not a loan, not an investment or some kind of thing where they're going to take equity and things like that. It's a grant. It's like, here, take this money and go build your dream. You know what I'm saying? Take advantage of this opportunity. All right. Now, I'm going to give both of you the opportunity to answer the question. I think that is, where do you see, with initiatives like this, it seems like the overall objective is to realize a particular vision for creative output and creative transformation and industry in the region. And I guess the idea I want to get from both of you is the vision behind what we think the Caribbean can be, the kind of force the Caribbean can be when we make this kind of investment and this kind of opportunities are extended to the different creative groups and individuals and so on across the region. From both of you, what do you think the future or the possibilities are?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, you're correct, Vaughn, that there is a bigger vision that is driving this project and a lot of the work that went before that I spoke to earlier. And essentially, what we are trying to do is to grow more globally competitive creative businesses. And we recognize that this is a region that punches well above its weight in this area. And we have had so many outstanding, musicians, and 2 Nobel laureates in literature, and we have demonstrated that we are a real powerhouse culturally. But I think what we're trying to address is that we have all of these greats and superstars, but we have so many more that have not had the opportunity to break out and to be known and to get we have, and a place like Jamaica that has the festival, the inter-school competition. I don't think we even realize how important a force that is in unearthing new talent, and the way in which we should ensure that, having given out all of these gold and silver and bronze medals, that we don't just allow those young potential great artists to go. We should then have another program that helps them to move them to the next level. And I think that, that festival and that inter-school competition is such an important part of why Jamaica's creative scene thrives, and you can find a play to go to every month, every week of the year. That doesn't happen in a lot of other countries in the region. And so really what we want to do is to provide an opportunity for new and emerging creatives to follow that path that has been blazed by the Bob Marleys and Machells and Mighty Sparrow and Bookman Experience and all of our brilliant artists from across the region who have done well. But we want to ensure that it's not a one-off, it's not a by chance, it is something where we create a pathway for developing and representing greatness of this region in this area. So those are my thoughts on it.
Okay, over to you, Olayinka.
Thank you, Vaughn. Well, I want to also put what Hilary said in a global context. This is a $1 trillion industry, okay, globally. I think 3 trillion was the last count, if I'm not mistaken. And the Caribbean sits within what we call the Global South region. So we have the Global North, which are the countries that we recognize as developed countries. And then we have the Global South, which are the emerging economies. And the emerging economies produce upwards of 45% of the content, of that creative content that is consumed by the Global North, okay? However, our return on investment is 0.01%. Wow. And that's the Global South in its totality. Within the Global South, you have the entire African continent, you have Asia, you have Australia, you have Latin America, and then you have us. So if collectively, that is the return on our investment. Imagine what the return on the investment of the Caribbean is within the 0.01%.
Yeah.
Okay?
Actually, I don't want to imagine that, but continue.
So that is the greater vision. The greater vision is that somehow we're going to contribute to shifting that decimal point. And perhaps we can be the region that leads the way. I have to say that our African colleagues are doing quite a lot, have been doing quite a lot of work. They've gotten quite a lot of investment ahead of the Caribbean region in different ways. There are a couple steps ahead of us, but we can still catch up. But within the Global South context, that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our seat at the table. We have the goods, we have the knife and fork, we have the plate, we have the food. We just need the chair. We need the chair, and we need to sit at the chair and stay there permanently, to grow in that chair. So that's the overarching vision, and that's what we hope that this is not the starting point, because as Hilary rightly said, this is decades of work. So this is a culmination of the first stage of the intervention, if you like. There need to be other stages, and we hope that this will be the beginning of the growing tree. So this is a part of the, this is part of the trunk of the tree. The roots have already been there. We want to see the leaves, and the leaves will generate, other sources of investment. And as I said in the beginning, we want to fund ourselves. We don't always have to look outwards in order to gain inwards. And so if we can support each other and work together and collaborate and do everything we need to do and utilize this funding in a really strategic way as persons in the sector, then we can get there. It might be another 10, 20 years, but it's okay. It doesn't matter how long it takes as long as we get there.
All right. I guess one of the last question as we kind of move to bring things down I would have is, it sounds to me like there's a we acknowledge that the raw talent is there, the raw ingredients are there, but it seems like we want to move beyond, and I think that is one of the biggest hurdles, are not necessarily because it's it's something that we can't do, or I think it's more, I guess, maybe a fear, or perhaps because there are many persons who believe that informally they can do this, because there are so many informal institutions that exist that are successful. I mean, undoubtedly doing pretty well. All these different dance and street dance type, which, events and so on, which have their own ecosystem when you really think about it. It's just that it's not recognizable in a formal sense, perhaps. So it seems to me like, that there are some formal institutions that you want to see. So, for example, whereas you have social media, many persons may have they kick out content on a regular basis. It seems like you want to see studios kicking out this content, and record labels, or you want to see like organizations and institutions that can prop up and then can use their bases as their formal operations to kind of get exported around the world. Is that fair to say, or am I off base here? Oh, Dr. Brown, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Let me fix that. Yes, thank you. I think it's fair to say that we do want to encourage in the persons in the industry to move towards greater formalization. So registering your business and putting in place the kinds of structures that will enable you to scale your operations and to export. I mean, I think that has got to be the objective of any business. And so we shouldn't see our businesses in the creative sector any differently. But at the same time, we're not putting all of that pressure on you at one time.
Of course, yeah.
That has to be the vision, that is the vision. And I think that we're also targeting or trying to target creative businesses at different levels of their development. So yes, there will be the more established ones that you would call export ready. But we're also trying to do grants like for emerging content creators. And one of the projects we actually didn't speak that much about some of the other enabling environment type activities that we're doing in the project, which is to develop a creative content hub, at least to design it, and to draft model legislation so that all our member states can implement a Creative Industry Development Act with those incentives. We want it legal. We want them to institutionalize that. And we're doing other things to do with data collection and so on. So there are a number of other enabling environment projects that would largely be done through consultants, persons who will pull that kind of information or make those proposals that we then take to governments and say, look, we want you to pass a Creative Industry Development Act, and here is the model legislation. Could you work towards passing that to ensure that our creatives are protected? So I would say that, yes, we're looking for more formalization over time, but we are targeting creatives where they are. And for the ones that have further to go, this is why we're encouraging you to partner to address any of the areas that you're not meeting now. But for any business sector, it has to be that we want to formalize and ensure that we can generate more income and employ more people. That's how we're taken seriously.
All right. I think, yeah, that's the perfect way to wrap. I think, it's just important to let persons know that, hey, you might be a quote unquote small man in a small area, but you have a big dream. And through projects like this, the dream is even bigger than perhaps you could have even imagined. You can start something that is, that's just a community event and it becomes a global festival that is exported and staged in other countries, and royalties and licensing and merchandise and all different kind of things. It's just about, once you take the step to put that vision on paper and create a framework or work through the framework that exists, that they're trying to create to give you the ability to do all of that, it exists. So it's just now the onus is on the creators to step forward, take advantage of this opportunity, and use it as a springboard to take them into the stratosphere. Because as we're not short of creativity, we're not short of talent. We just need to we just need to tap into the environment that will allow them to do that. All right, people. So as we said, Google Creative Caribbean Project, UNESCO. Website's going to come up. Jump on the website, search with a fine-tooth comb, find the one that best applies to you. Apply. You have until June 16, but apply. Don't waste the time. Use up the time that you have. Apply. Don't feel intimidated. Don't feel like this don't apply to you. Don't feel like this now go work out for you, because we have that mentality. Yo, now go work out for me up here. A big man thing that alone. Now give me the money. Apply. You never know. This could very well be the opportunity that you've been waiting for. You've had that idea kicking around in the back of your mind for the longest while. And you say, boy, if me did have the money, nothing couldn't stop me. There you go. You have the money. There's an opportunity. Take advantage of it, people. These are the different, the people say, nothing not going. I lie that, something not going. See it, yeah? It's right here. Something's going on. All right? With that
and
said,
Vaughn,
go ahead, sure.
Sorry, Vaughn, if I could just mention one small thing as well, and I think we should perhaps put a link from our website, and that is that the Creative and Cultural Innovation Fund. And if our creatives have never heard about it, it is managed by the Caribbean Development Bank. It's a regional fund. You can access it through the CDB website. Again, if you Google Creative and Cultural Innovation Fund, it will come up. But that fund actually developed an online proposal writing training module. So we know, again, this can be a challenge. You're not sure maybe the mechanics of doing proposal writing. So I think as a matter of priority, we're going to put a link to that from our website, because that is a resource that can also help you to figure out, well, how do I put the ideas together? So I thought I'd just mention that resource is there as
exactly.
well.
Imagine.
And sorry, Vaughn, just before you wrap, I'm about to put the contact email in the chat. Very simple, creative.caribbean@unesco.org. And just to reinforce what you said, it doesn't matter how small you are. You could be one person working out of your home studio. That's okay.
There's something for you there. There's something for you there. Imagine if the pudding man in Ocherius decide that he more have a pudding festival, and suddenly all of a sudden we have a Jamaica pudding festival in London, in Brazil, in Greece, I don't know, wherever. And then you take it, and it's possible. The vision.
And our craft producers, those people who sell things on the side of the road, I think of that gentleman who sells the Ludo boards on South Avenue in Kingston. He can apply for this grant if he wants to expand.
Exactly. You see, there, all I just said it. Opportunity there are people. So I encourage you, I implore you, every word that is possible. And our engineer just shared the link in our website in the chat. So you can see the creative.caribbean@unesco.org. You can jump on that, send an email, get in touch with them, find out everything that you can so you can benefit. All right, people, we've spoken. I hope you receive it. The ball is now in your court. All right, people. With that said, I think it's definitely time for us to wrap. Thank you to everyone who tuned into our discussion. And if after going through you have a question or we didn't answer something that you wanted to hear, drop it in the chat below so we can go through it and get you the information that you need. All right. Now remember, our audience plays a major part in our show. So if there's anyone in particular you'd like us to have in studio, let us know. And we'll try to have that person in studio as soon as possible. And while you're at it, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to see who will be in studio next. And while you're at it, you can check out CARICOM too. You can check out UNESCO too. They're doing a whole heap of work, trying to see what beyond just the granting and all that stuff that they're doing. Check it out. I mean, like we said, it's all about what's going on in the region and how we can support and build out and develop our region to make it, you know, attractive and marketable and all the different things that are good. All right, people, we do this every week live on Facebook and YouTube. And I've been your host, Vaughn Davis, and this has been Studio 58A Live. Thank you all so much for joining us, and please have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care, and take care to both of you ladies. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.